Looking to do something dramatically different for your fantasy draft? Go to Whirlwind Golf Club at Wild Horse Pass. From now through week 1 of the regular season, you'll get 18 holes of golf, a private dining room for your fantasy draft, plus nachos, wings, non-alcoholic beverages, and you'll save $1 on all premium liquor and draft beer. Packages start as low as $75 a person. Yes, I said golf at Whirlwind and draft your fantasy team while eating the best wings in the city. If you're interested, just email me, Doug@DougFranzUnplugged.com, and have everybody else look at your draft board and feel the wind.
Thanks for listening, Unplugged Army. I'm Louis Unga, General Manager at Whirlwind Golf Club at Wild Horse Pass. We're proud to present Doug Franz Unplugged.
Form an offense.
Form an offense.
4 minutes.
Form an offense. Form an offense.
Everything you need to know in sports that affects Maricopa County, the state of Arizona, and the world, you get in 4 minutes. We start things off in downtown Pittsburgh. D-backs lose 2 out of 3 on the road at Pittsburgh. They scored on an 11th inning sac fly on Friday to win 1-0, and that was the only run of the series. They lost 2-0 Saturday and 6-0 yesterday. Manager Torey Lavello.
Yeah, it's hard to go through what we're going through right now, right? It's 27, probably 29 innings scoring 1 run, and we know that we're more capable than that. It's 13 strikeouts and 1 walk. We got to be able to control counts, get on base in a more dynamic way, and drive baseballs all over the baseball field, but we're a little bit of a grind right now.
In the middle of the game Saturday, 5th inning, Randall Grichuk was traded to the Kansas City Royals for reliever Andrew Hoffman. Friday morning, General Manager Mike Hazen met with the media via Zoom. I asked him, is it only Gallen, Kelly, and Suarez that are available?
Cattell, Corbin, Moreno, Perdomo, Fott, Nelson, the younger group that's under long-term control, they're all calling me about them too. If I say, well, it would be a haul, that usually shuts the conversations down pretty quickly. So the majority of the conversations surround the guys that are coming up.
Coming up meaning their contract ends at the end of the regular season. Diamondbacks are in Detroit tonight, taking on the best team in baseball. Eduardo Rodriguez against Casey Mize. First pitch this afternoon at 3:40. Horrible news for the Arizona cornerback room. Starling Thomas V, torn ACL. Cornerback Jaden Davis, bad knee. Head coach Jonathan Gannon.
Star and Jaden are going to go to IR. Star will not be back this year. Jaden will have a possibility. He's going to miss some time, but has a possibility to possibly come back. So, feel awful and bad for those guys. Obviously talked to both of them. These guys go through a lot and put a lot in, but it's a tough break.
In replacement, the Cardinals signed corner Stephen Gilmore, the little brother of Stephon Gilmore. Big day today. It's the first day that legalized hitting goes on, meaning, according to the CBA of the NFL, players can practice in pads. Mercury split the weekend. They lost to the Liberty and beat Washington. Phoenix got crushed in the second half in Brooklyn, lost 43-30, even though Alyssa Thomas had 20 points, 13 boards, and 8 assists. Head coach Nate Tibbetts.
I was happy with our offense in the first half, and I think you got to give them some credit defensively for what they did to slow us down.
The final was 89-76, but the Mercury won in Washington, again thanks to a second half, 81-72 the final. Alyssa Thomas again 2 assists shy of a triple-double with 27, 11, and 8. Mercury are off today and tomorrow. They're at Indiana Wednesday afternoon. Well, the game didn't matter, and the Rattlers played like it. San Diego won 46-26 last night. The Rattlers were down 30-6 at halftime. The reason why it didn't matter is because, irrelevant of the result, the Rattlers were the number 2 seed in the playoffs. By virtue of San Diego's win, now San Diego comes to Arizona for their playoff game. The first round is 1 week from tonight. Rattlers at home against San Diego on the west side. PGA Tour, Kurt Kitayama went 60-65 to win the 3M Championship. Up next is the Wyndham Championship in Greensboro. The LPGA, Lottie Wood won the Scottish Open in her very first professional tournament. Now it's a major. The AIG Women's Open is at Royal Porthcawl in Wales. It gets underway Thursday morning in the United Kingdom, but late Wednesday night for us. And finally, so the CEO of the company Astronomer is caught at a Coldplay concert with his HR director, and they're having an affair.
Thank you for your interest in Astronomer. Hi.
So what can Astronomer do to handle this PR nightmare? Hire the lead singer of Coldplay's ex-wife to be their new spokesperson.
I'm Gwyneth Paltrow. I've been hired on a very temporary basis to speak on behalf of the 300 plus employees at Astronomer. Astronomer has gotten a lot of questions over the last few days, and they wanted me to answer the most common ones.
Astronomer's website has been flooded with curious people trying to figure out what the company does. The PR department pulled the general theme of the questions that they're getting asked, which of course are a little off color. On the screen, you see the words appearing while the sound of a keyboard typing is clearly audible. And it says, OMG, what the actual F? And as soon as the F is put up, Gwyneth Paltrow says,
Yes, Astronomer is the best place to run Apache Airflow, unifying the experience of running data, ML, and AI pipelines at scale. We've been thrilled so many people have a newfound interest in data workflow automation.
This is the most brilliant PR crisis campaign in the history of business. The second question the screen shows, how is your media team holding up? Meaning against the scrutiny of the affair. But Gwyneth Paltrow changes it to an upcoming conference.
As for the other questions we received,
which is, how is your media team holding up?
Yes, there is still room available at our Beyond Analytics event in September. We will now be returning to what we do best, delivering game-changing results for our customers. Thank you for your interest in Astronomer.
We have no word whether or not the CEO and the HR director are currently consciously uncoupling or not.
The reason why I always say that Bell's is not your typical country bar with mediocre bar food is because our kitchen is truly a scratch kitchen. From every single sauce that we make, to every dish, to the beef that we have come in, to the seafood that we have brought in each day, every single dish is handcrafted. We don't have microwaves, so you're tasting that quality the minute that it hits the table.
Bell's Nashville Kitchen on Main Street in Old Town Scottsdale.
You found home, down home.
Oh, it was so glorious last night. You see, I told my wife the cut-up shredded cheddar cheese is not going to last much longer. We should make a meal where we have to use a lot of cheddar cheese. And we went back to my Ohio roots and had one of my favorite meals last night. I had a four-way Skyline. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Whatever it is that you've decided to make Doug Franz Unplugged a part of your day, my family greatly appreciates it. My name is Doug Franz, and you have found the only podcast in the world totally devoted to the coverage of the four major sports franchises of your the four major sports franchises of one great American city that drops on your phone each and every weekday morning. We also cover ASU, U of A, GCU, the Rattlers Rising, and the Merc. This is Doug Franz Unplugged, presented by Whirlwind Golf Club at Wild Horse Pass. Thought you had me, General Tom. Thought you had me. I don't know why there was a flame out there. I'm in a great mood. Hopefully you had a good weekend. I got really lucky. I don't know how I pulled this off. So I'm from Ohio. You've heard about it before. Skyline Chili in Southwest Ohio. It is obviously something that those of us in that area love, and other people think it makes absolutely no sense to have spaghetti, then have chili, then have cheddar cheese, then have onions, and then have hot sauce, and consider that a fantastic gourmet meal. And yes, I do. Well, if you don't know, the number one grocery store in the world is, meaning by volume, is Kroger. And at least I shouldn't say the world, in the Western Hemisphere is Kroger. And Kroger owns Fry's. So since Kroger is a Cincinnati company, there's cans of Skyline chili at Fry's. So we have two cans, kind of just sitting there in the cupboard for an emergency or something. And with all this cheddar cheese that was cut up, I talked Jennifer into making Skyline, which that's normal. That was a hard sell. I think that was a hard sell because I don't know what's happened. After losing Dr. Fred, I did a great job, lost some weight, was getting into better shape, and really stayed committed until about May. And then, boom, I I've done a little bit, but not nearly as religiously as I was. And I put on a whole bunch of weight. And so I thought there's no way I'm going to get Skyline out of her. And I got Skyline. Yeah. So I'm in a great mood, man. I love that stuff. It's a drug. I admit it. It's just, it's heaven. It's heaven. And if you didn't grow up with it, you probably think it's terrible. But I absolutely love it. So I'm in a good mood. Having Skyline chili last night for dinner. We got a lot to get to today, so it's probably going to be a little bit of a longer show. So please use the time cues and figure out what you want to listen to. Obviously, the Diamondbacks are the number one topic, but it's not my number one opinion. So we'll talk Diamondbacks later in the show. As for me, something happened over the weekend that really grabbed my attention. So that'll be coming up on Doug's Big One. But before we get to it, I got to tell you, I had a great Friday night. Cam Cox, 12 News, was already at practice for Cards Camp. And then he wasn't on air the rest of the night. So he came over to Reds, which is the sports bar attached to the Wigwam Golf Club, and met me there and intern McKenna, and worked on teaching me more about video editing. And I got to tell you, I'm getting closer. I got a buddy working on some transitions. It was a huge step forward on Friday, a huge step forward. So we're almost ready to debut the first 4-minute offense on YouTube. I'm so nervous, but we're getting there. I'm getting more and more excited. My goal has been to try to have it ready for football season, and I think I'm going to hit that goal. So I'm pretty excited. So thanks a lot, man. Please watch 12 News. Please watch 12 News. That's just so cool to me that he spent that kind of time with me to work on things. And then that's what I did all weekend, was working on different stuff and getting ready. So I'm excited about that. All right. I think that's it. I don't have anything else going on in life. All I did was work this weekend. Hopefully you had a great weekend. Oh, no, I do have one more thing. Don't forget, you heard the commercial at the beginning, Whirlwind Golf Club Fantasy Football Draft, the only time in the history of the world you're going to be able to combine a golf course. And basically, I think this is crazy. You get to golf at about the same price you normally would pay to golf, but you get wings and nachos to do your fantasy draft, and you get free non-alcoholic drinks, and you get a $1 off your beer while you're there doing your draft. Book it any time between now and the first game of the year, the Thursday after Labor Day. Why wouldn't you do that? You 10 buddies, $75 a piece, possibly maybe $100 a piece, depending on what day of the week you want. If you want any details, email me, Doug@DougFranzUnplugged.com. This is a no-brainer, and I want to do an Unplugged League. So right now, there are 2 commitments to an Unplugged League. I would be the third one. And if you want in on it, let me know, Doug@DougFranzUnplugged.com, and we'll do our draft. We'll take one of the dates. I would like it to be the Friday before Labor Day, and we'll go out there and we'll do our draft over lunch, and then I want to let my food settle for a little bit and then have a later tea time. I might be using a designated driver. I get $1 off beer, all the wings I can handle, running a draft. I'm not going to be ready to go out and golf after all the wings I can handle. So that might be a little crazy. And then maybe, you know what? Maybe I'll mix in a lesson with Brandon. So, I can't just go full bore here, but maybe you can kind of come out. I don't know. There's a lot there. We should jump on all of that. So if you want in on it, Doug@DougFranzUnplugged.com. All right, it's time for Doug's Big One. It's my number one opinion of the day. Let's roll. Doug.
Where's Doug? Here, sorry, Doug. Where are you at?
Obviously, Franz is such a good player.
Doug's Big One. I have become one of the biggest Starling Thomas fans in the country. And that's Doug's Big One. I don't know if that's much of an opinion. Listen, I've got tons of Diamondbacks opinions. They're biting. They're hard hitting. I've got problems there. Can't wait to talk to you about Ichiro's Hall of Fame speech. I thought it was legendary. But the Starling Thomas injury, I just think, is so heartbreaking that it's maybe not my number one opinion. It's just my number one thought that I've got going on today. So this is Jonathan Gannon, head coach, talking about the latest injury issues for the Cardinals coming up after the news had broke that Starling Thomas tore his ACL.
Week 2 here, I guess. I'm sure you guys saw the news. Star and Jaden are going to go to IR. Star will not be back this year. Jaden will have a possibility. He's going to miss some time, but has a possibility to possibly come back. So, feel awful and bad for those guys. Obviously talked to both of them. These guys go through a lot and put a lot in. And it's just it's a tough break, but they'll do everything they can do to get back, and they will be both of them will be back at some point, and we'll move on.
Here's why this grabs me so much. Starling Thomas went to Ramsey High School in Birmingham, Alabama. I've never been to Ramsey High School. The only thing I know about it, this is kind of funny, is if you're my age, you got to be older than me. But do you remember the cheesy TV show, The Match Game? I used to watch The Match Game all the time, but I was too young to understand all the sexual innuendos in that game. The guy went over here and she said, "I want to see your blank." And then everybody laughed. And I'm like, you see your umbrella? I didn't get what they were saying. But there was a person on that show all the time, this woman named Fanny Flagg. I don't have any idea what she did in life other than be a panelist on The Match Game. But when I was a seller in Huntsville, Alabama, I just remember we were talking high school football or something and playing a team in Birmingham. And I just remember the guy saying, "Yeah, I think they're playing Ramsey this weekend." That's where Fanny Flagg went to high school. And that name is so funny, and that show was so ridiculous that's always stuck with me, that guy said that. Well, anyway, that school is kind of amazing. Now I'm going to make these numbers up, I don't remember, but it's got like 70% of the kids at that school are on free lunch programs. And I say that not to judge, I just say that to let you know it's an impoverished area. Yet it's a hugely high academic school, very academic high school. So Ramsey's there, Ramsey's the high school. Starling Thomas is there, all excited to play college football, thinks he's going to be able to do something, and he's only ranked as a 3-star athlete. So he goes to UAB, which is the University of Alabama, Birmingham. UAB football has always been pretty poor. It gets terrible support because the community of Birmingham is so Auburn and Alabama oriented. They just simply don't care about UAB. No matter what you want them to do, they just don't care. And at around the time Starling Thomas would have chosen UAB, I don't remember the timeline. I'm not going to look it up. But about 10 years ago or so, give me plus or minus, UAB just arbitrarily decided they were going to end football. The whole state got mad. They had a small fundraiser and UAB said, "Fine, we'll keep football going." But imagine once they canceled, they canceled the year. It was gone for like a year or two. So all those players left. So Starling Thomas goes to UAB as one of the first people on the new version of the football team. He does pretty well and tears his ACL at one point, comes back and has a good year and is told by everybody you're going to be a 6th or 7th round pick in the 2023 draft. He doesn't get drafted. Detroit signs him. It looks like he's going to make the team, and he gets cut. And then in the first year of Monty Ossenfort as general manager, they pick up Starling Thomas. And he's inactive or so for the first, 3-4 games, something like that. And then he's a regular contributor for the last 3 months or so of the season. And then last year, he starts almost every game. So, he's doing a lot, and for an undrafted guy. And this was supposed to be his year. And the reason why this really matters for somebody like him, I know that this conversation could easily get out of hand. There's a lot of people that as soon as I say some of these numbers, you're gonna think I'm being ridiculous for feeling bad for him, but I do. He's going to be at about $2.3 million. I don't mean for the year, I mean for his career. And this is the year that if he does well, he probably signs for generational money. Now, before you say, well, wait a minute, what do you think 2.3 is? Yes, $2.3 million is more money than I will ever see. Okay? I'm not talking about it from that standpoint. But please keep in mind, you pay federal taxes on that money at an incredibly high rate. You pay state taxes on that money. And then on top of it, there's, I shouldn't say ridiculous. I'm against it. I think it's wrong. But there's a thing called the jock tax or entertainer's tax. Almost every city has one. Oh, you want to have an event in our town? Well, we're going to charge you for being here. So athletes pay taxes in almost every city that they play in. So not only are they paying taxes in the state they live in and the city they live in, but now they got to pay taxes because you're like, if you have a game, like whenever they play the Rams and 49ers, you have to pay an outrageous, well, the 49ers isn't as bad. Santa Clara doesn't have the rule, but the LA does. When you're playing the Rams, you have to pay pretty much out the wazoo a big chunk of your game check. So all in all, you probably get about 50% of your money. So in these 3 years, he's probably going to end up making 1.2, and that's just take home. And then obviously you live in 2 different places. He might have a house in Birmingham in the area where he grew up, but then he's got a house here. And again, I know if you want to argue, oh, woe is him. But the catch is he's probably 23 years old, 25, probably a little older than that. Let's say 25 years old. This is his livelihood. This is all he has. And once this is over, in a sense, you're trying to make as much money to set yourself up for life, because if you don't, you're entering the job market way behind everybody else. Now you might, meaning your age group. Now you might have made some contacts in there that you can use to connect, but it's just if you push forward for a long time trying to be a professional athlete and you don't make it, then you don't have nearly the money everybody thinks that you do. This was the year for him to have a good season and make the money. And now he's out with an ACL. I'm sure Monty Ossenfort is rooting for him, but he can't sit back and wait to see how a guy's going to do who tore his ACL in college and now has torn his ACL again. And cornerback was already going to be a position of need in the 2026 draft, 2026 free agency. This young man might have just lost the chance. I don't know. But I just wanted to, that's Doug's big one today. Just wanted to show a little heart and just say that one's gut wrenching. And Starling Thomas, I'm sure you've never even heard of me. You came to town after the Doug and Wolf show, but if you care, the commander-in-chief of the Unplugged Army is really pulling for you. Attack the rehab and make them rip the jersey off of you. Find a way back. A lot of D-backs to talk about, but since I started on the Cardinals, I'll stay there and we'll do D-backs in a little bit. I guess my number 2 opinion, number 3 opinion, number 4 opinion would all be Diamondbacks. But my number 5 opinion is I really hope to see a physical practice today. I'm really worried that any chance of a physical practice went up in smoke with the torn ACL of Starling Thomas and Walter Nolan already being injured. But I say that because I think the last 2 years have been Camp Pillow Fight. And I don't think Camp Cupcake is a good idea. And I think it's been like that under Jonathan Gannon because he talks a good game. He talks about violence. He talks about how physical they expect to be. But they aren't that way in the first 2 years of training camp. They would have about 1 practice a year that might be all the way up to a 5 on a scale of 1 to 10 for a physical practice. And today is the first day they're allowed to actually hit. I was hoping for a huge practice today. You want to compete for a playoff? It's time to realize what's the one thing that you're not doing. And I would say it's being physical. And I'm hoping that they do something big time today. And I'm a little worried that they're not going to. So Monty Ossenfort also had a press conference over the weekend, and it's going to be interesting to see if that happens again. Monty Ossenfort does not make himself available to the media very often, but I really love the way he handled this question. One person said, hey, the 2024 draft, you had X amount of picks in the first 90 or the first 100. You know, how key is that draft for those players to step up? And what I liked about Monty's answer, it was almost saying, I don't care what draft selection number is next to their name. And he doesn't say this, but to me, he says, I always think the draft from 2 years ago is enormous.
I think it's huge. Because we always talk about there's no bigger jump that a player can make than year 1 to year 2. Okay. What's asked of rookie players as they come in, that is a monstrous transition, a huge transition, physically, mentally, got to find a new place to live. Like there's so much, and they really don't have much, if any, downtime. So it's like a constant cycle. And so that, the second year players that you're referring to, they're coming off really their first break in over, call it 17, 18 months. And that's hard. That's taxing on the body, physically, mentally. And so, now those guys have had a year. They've had a year. They've adapted to the speed of the game. They've had a year to develop their body mentally. It's not as, they have the playbook down. It's more natural for them. And so, just to see those guys just to develop and to be able to, maintain their role, expand their role, that year 1 to year 2 jump, that's one that we hope to see.
The reason why I really like that answer is it's so genuine. I mean, a lot of times a general manager doesn't want to say something in front of the media that could be spun to add pressure. Here's what I mean by that. When you say it's huge for that draft class to develop, well, then if they don't, the obvious follow-up question at the end of this offseason was, you said at the beginning of the year, it's huge for this 2024 draft class to really expand their role and develop in 2025. Why didn't they? You're not trying to ask a gotcha question, but that's the words the GM used. And if it doesn't happen, obviously the question is, why'd you pick them? Either the process broke down in selection or the process broke down in development. Where's it's like you've always heard the phrase research and development, other than research and Doug, but research and development. Well, in this case, it's kind of research or development. Either you drafted the wrong guy or you drafted the right guy and he didn't develop. And if he didn't develop, why not? Did he have situations in his life pop up, or was it your coaching staff wasn't as good at developing talent as you thought they were? And he just put that out there, and he's so right. And then just to kind of get a handle, if you think about the drafts under Monty Ossenfort, one of the things that really I don't think Steve Keim got enough criticism for is how bad he failed in the late rounds. I don't want to act like that's easy. Okay, it's not like you're expecting to get Hall of Famers in the 5th, 6th, and 7th round. But to a man, almost every 5th, 6th, and 7th round pick was an abject failure under Steve Keim. And you're getting production from a lot of the 4 through 7 guys under Monty Ossenfort. But when you look at that 2024 class, obviously you're staring right at Marvin Harrison Jr. Now, the next question, it kind of brings back up Steve Keim, but this is our own Bobby Mack asking, when you got here, did you look at this as a gut job that you needed to gut it to really bring the culture in and get the team to the point that you wanted?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that we set out to do from the start is we needed to create a core of players, okay? And we needed to create a core of players that understood what exactly we wanted to be as a team. And so some of those players were here, and those players are still here, and they've been huge to what we're trying to do. And there was a lot of those players that are new. And you guys have seen there's been a lot of new players. And again, through 3 cycles, that is a group. But there was still a group of guys that bought into what we were saying, believed in what we were saying. Work ethic was already there. We didn't have to do anything. And so, I think that was a goal of ours to set out to do. I think we've added good guys. Like it is important to JG and I to add the right type of people to the locker room so that when we go and tell James Conner, Budda Baker, Kyler, JT, Trey McBride, like all those guys, like we owe it to those guys to bring in the right type of guys. And so that was important. And that was something that we set out to do when we first, to get as many of those guys as we can.
It's interesting. I just kind of ripped Keim, but the core, trading up and drafting Budda Baker in the 2nd round has proven to be outstanding. The guy's a borderline Hall of Famer and a definite member of the Cardinals Ring of Honor at some point. Kyler, even though I'm not the biggest fan, he's still here. Trey McBride was actually a Steve Keim draft pick, and he's one of the more premier tight ends in the game. So it is kind of interesting that, and Thompson, that you've got the people that you would describe as core actually came here under Steve Keim, but it's everything else that was just such a mess. And I just like the way, Monty put it out there that, hey, I don't really look at it as a gut, as we had to clean house. We just had to narrow down, this is what we're expecting. This is what we want to see. And we kept the guys that we were seeing it from. And, it's really not that much deeper than that. Now, this last one from the Monty Ossenfort presser is about 20 minutes long. I just found 3 cuts that I thought were interesting. That, again, kind of what I explained last week. I want to play what I think I can either learn from, I can teach you about, or I feel like if I was a Cardinals fan, I would want to know everything that made me feel closer to my team, that made me feel like I know things that insiders would know. And I'm not saying I'm an insider in that sense. I'm saying more a big-time fan would want to know. So Monty Ossenfort was asked about his practice habits. Now, and I don't mean the team. I mean his own personal practice habits. There's no right way or wrong way. We could rip Steve Keim for a lot of things, but Steve Keim would sit up in the stands, not with fans. One side of the stands, it was always blocked off, and he would sit halfway up on the aisle and watch practice. And on the days where there was the red and white scrimmage and both sides of the stands are being used, he would normally, that would be when he would watch from the field. But he would rarely be on the field during practice. And Monty Ossenfort is not only always on the field, but he's always walking around with like a little note card and a pen, writing stuff down. So he was asked about his practice habits and how he walks around and how he's just always right there in the middle of a drill, but he doesn't say much. It's not like he's out there coaching. Maybe he asks a question to a coach or a player or something, but he keeps his distance, yet he's always omnipresent. I have no idea what that word means. So he was asked about why he goes about practice in the way that he does.
Well, I mean, I think, we've talked about it all the time. It's a constant evaluation process. And so there's nothing more important that we do than practice. And so to be out there firsthand and watching it live and trying to understand, I mean, I have a lot to learn. I learn every day from our coaches. I try to understand what we're asking players to do schematically, mentally, so that when I evaluate and when our staff evaluates, that we're evaluating correctly. We may say, hey, this player did something wrong, and the coach is coming, no, he was supposed to do this, somebody else. So that's important. And without being there and being involved and seeing it firsthand, it's hard to get an exact feel for that. And so, doing it live, doing it at practice, seeing guys up close. I mean, we can go back and watch the tape. We go back to, this afternoon, tonight, tomorrow morning, we'll watch it multiple times. But there's also value in being up close and seeing guys interact, seeing guys communicate. And that's part of, everything that we're trying to build here. And so it's important. It's important to be out there. And like I said, there's nothing more. The most important thing that we do is practice.
That brings up so many topics. I'm not against Pro Football Focus, but it is something interesting to think about where Pro Football Focus will judge whether or not you missed an assignment. However, the general manager says there are times that they think someone's at fault and they find out from the coaches, no, it was someone else. Now think about that for a second. The general manager of the team, his staff gets it wrong and checks with the coaches. Now, I don't know how often that happens. If it happens once a play, if it happens once a series, if it happens once a game, if it happens 3 or 4 times a year and that's it. I don't know. But it's funny here, he is admitting it happens to him. And yet Pro Football Focus thinks they know exactly what is everybody's responsibility and how they're coached to do what on what play. And they probably get a lot of it right, but there's no way they get them all right. The other thing I liked about what he said is, I want to be in there. I want to hear the communication. Boy, is that huge. There are some guys that are kind of rah-rah leaders. They're great at getting people pumped up and stuff like that, but maybe they don't have a high football IQ. The real leaders are a guy like Budda Baker that's barking out the play, that's telling the young corner, you need to be here. And Monty doesn't get to hear that if he's sitting up in a stand. So again, I don't want to say one's right and one's wrong, but I like where he's going. If you want to see the high view, watch it on film afterwards. But there's too many little tidbits that you're going to miss when you're not on the field. But since you have the opportunity to be so. I thought that was really good. And I would like it as a GM because I want to hear exactly what the coaches are telling the players. Not to spy on them, but to really understand how they're being coached. Because I want to see how that player responds to the coaching. If I've drafted the type of player I want to be a Cardinal, then I want the player to love being coached hard. I want the player to feel like I love football so much and I want to be so great that if this man is telling me do it this way and it's going to make me better, well, then of course I want to do that. And the type of guy that's all bitter at hard coaching and acting like it's unfair that he's getting picked on, then I know I picked the wrong guy. That's not what I want. And the best way to know it is if I'm on the field listening to it. I like that a lot. Last one from Cardinals, back to Jonathan Gannon. It was just really simple. Our own Bobby Mack asked how Jacoby Brissett is doing, the backup quarterback. And this isn't earth-shattering or anything. I just felt like it's important for us to know because the way Kyler seems to get banged up, I'm sure there's going to be quite a few snaps from Jacoby Brissett.
Awesome. He's smart as they come, Bob. So been around a long time. He's played in a lot of systems. He's played in a version of this system, I would say, not this system, but played a version of this system. What's cool is some of our new guys, some of the things that I talk about with the team, he has heard some of those things because of Nick Sirianni when he was in Indianapolis. Frank Reich, we were both there. And I liked a lot of the stuff that Frank, what he coached, and Nick, what he coached. So he's heard a lot of that stuff. He smirks at me sometimes, but he's extremely smart, extremely intelligent. I thought he looked better this last 3 days than he did in OTAs, truthfully. He's playing well.
It's interesting. He said he's played in a version of this offense. In 2022, he was a player for the Cleveland Browns. Jacoby Brissett was. Their quarterbacks coach was Drew Petzing. So I am assuming it's very, very similar to what he was running there. So that's kind of, a good tie-in. And I just thought, with the way Kyler runs the ball and almost always gets hurt, there's a very good chance you're going to see some Jacoby Brissett. Okay, coming up next, going to talk Diamondbacks, and I'm going to give you a little bit of a tease. If you didn't see my tweet last night, you're going to never in a million years guess this. The Arizona Diamondbacks in 2025 have a 10-11 record, 10 wins, 11 losses, whenever they play blank. Join Fannie Flagg for the match game next on Doug Franz Unplugged. This is not as funny as I thought it was going to be. Presented by Whirlwind Golf Club at Wild Horse Fast. You know what time it is. It's summer in Arizona. You've got to have the Parker & Sons phone number ready to go. Air conditioning in Phoenix is too important to trust anybody but the best. Parker & Sons were recommended to us when we first moved here. That was 17 years ago. They've been on time every time. They've gotten it right the first time, every time. Call 602-2REPAIR. That's 602, the number 2, then REPAIR for Parker & Sons.
It's big, it's juicy, it's meaty. Get your burrito at Burrito Express. If you're having a hangover, a bad day, even a good day, still get your burrito at Burrito Express. It will make you feel better.
So tell me if you figured it out, or if you went back and looked up the tweet. Diamondbacks lose 2 out of 3 to the Pittsburgh Pirates over the weekend. Very strange. They don't score in the first 10 innings of Friday's game. Get a sac fly to knock in a run in a hitless 11th inning. Pirates don't score, D-backs win. And then the D-backs do not score Saturday or Sunday. Back-to-back shutout losses, 2-0 and 6-0 on Saturday and Sunday. So 1 run in 29 innings. Wow, is that bad? So I've already been frustrated with their record against the Washington Nationals and the Pittsburgh Pirates. So I looked it up, and the Diamondbacks this year are 4-8 against those two teams. Just so you feel their record, Washington right now is 21 games under, 19 games under 500. And the Pirates are 18 games under 500. Yet combined, they're 8-4 against the Diamondbacks. So then I started looking around and I realized the Diamondbacks haven't played the A's yet this year. But I remember being frustrated on a road trip when they played Colorado and the White Sox, and they did win the series. They won 2 out of 3. But the point was they had them on the ropes for a sweep and didn't get it done. And when you're playing a team that terrible, you should be able to get a sweep. So then I decided I'm just going to look at their record against all last place teams. Currently, the last place teams are the Orioles, the White Sox, the A's, the Nationals, the Pirates, and the Rockies. Have not played the A's. Their record against last place, the other 5 last place teams, is 10-11. I mean, we can talk all these winning, losing, hey, 1-run games, or this happens, or this guy does this, or, blah, blah, blah. But you're 10-11 against last place teams. The Orioles are 47-58. It's amazing they're in last place, but they're the division, if you didn't know, Tampa Bay is in 4th place, and they're a 500 team in 4th place. That's incredible division. But Baltimore's 47-58. Diamondbacks went 2-1 against Baltimore. White Sox are 38-68. They are 30 games below 500. They have a .358 winning percentage. And the Diamondbacks couldn't sweep them. They went 2-1 against the White Sox. Diamondbacks play the A's on this trip. After the Detroit series, they go to Sacramento to take on the A's. I haven't played them yet. Nationals, they're 4-2, or they're the other way around. They're 2-4 against the Nationals, 2-4 against the Pirates, and only 2-1 against the Rockies. And just to really think about this, so you know, the Rockies are 51 games below 500. They are 33.5 games out of first place. And you've heard of point run differential, right? The amount of runs you score minus the amount of runs you've given up. A lot of analytics love run differential as a stat. If it's really high and your record's not that great, the belief is don't worry, it will become great. And if your record's really good, but your run differential is kind of average, the thought process is you're going to regress at some point. Okay? So having said that, when you hear that they're only 2-1 against the Rockies and the Rockies are 51 games below 500, let me tell you about run differential. The penultimate team, the second worst team in run differential, the team that they're about to play, the A's, at minus 121. So that's second worst. I just want you to think about that. That's second worst. The Rockies are the worst. What do you think the gap is? Like if I tell you minus 121 is the second worst run differential, where do you think the Rockies are without knowing? 141, 180 runs, minus 190. The Rockies are at minus 268. Their run differential is 140 runs worse than the next worst team. Who cares how bad they are compared to somebody else that's actually on top? Right now, the Cubs are the only team in the positive over 100. The Cubs are at plus 116. Who cares where they are compared to the top? They're 120 runs behind 140 runs behind second to last. And the Diamondbacks should only go 2-1 against them, 10-11 overall against last place teams. What should they be? 15-6 maybe? Again, last place teams, 16-5. If you've decided they should be 16-5 against a last place team, I'm not saying you go back and you say, oh, they only lost by a run, and if this guy would have done this or this. No. I don't mean it like that. I just mean a team with playoff aspirations. What should their record be against last place teams? if we decide to settle on 15-6, the Diamondbacks would be 2 games out of the playoffs. That's it. Just 2 games. We're not talking about a good team. That's the one thing that really bothers me is how often we heard good team. I want you to hear this. This is Mike Hazen, general manager of the Diamondbacks. No, I'm not in favor of firing Mike Hazen. But I am in favor of being upset when I hear crap. And if you really want to know what's the biggest problem with the 2025 Arizona Diamondbacks, it's the belief that they're good. That's the biggest problem. You see, you're either wrong in your evaluation that it's a talented team, or you're wrong with your little calculator that just because the numbers say that they're good individually does not mean they're a team. Mark McClune asked a good question on the Mike Hazen presser, and I kept it in so you could hear it. And it was just simply, what happened here?
As you've kind of assessed, how things have gone this year in the record and how the team has performed, how do you kind of, wrap your mind around why it didn't happen for you this year, at least to this point?
Yeah. It's hard for me to say like it didn't happen. We're still in a position where I think if you kind of squint, like we've been in worse situations than we are right now at this time of year. So it's some sort of beauty of the eye of the beholder about how you're feeling about it. I think the challenge that I sit right now with 5 guys in the opening day bullpen sitting on the shelf, and there are some there's hopefulness that we'll get some of those guys back for sure. It is, it becomes harder to envision, take out this week or what's happened the last week about going another 2+ months with the way sort of the bullpen, the pitching staff in general has performed, and feeling like, this is what we can bank on leading us to getting to the playoffs. So it's, as far as, gross assessments, I think Tori would say the same thing to you. I think the most disappointing thing I've seen has been the play of our defense. And I think that's something that I'm going to need to focus in on going into the end of this year and into the offseason about how we're better suited from a run prevention standpoint. Because clearly, look, the offense has been great. We've scored a ton of runs. That hasn't led us to winning games consistently. We haven't been able to keep the other team off the board when we've needed to. And, that was the issue last year, and it's the issue again this year. And we need to figure out a way to fix that issue.
The beginning of that answer really riles me up. It's hard to say it didn't happen yet, because if you squint, we're right there. This is not one of those rants where I act like I'm a better general manager than Mike Hazen. All right? And hopefully you've never heard one from me that makes it sound like that. This guy is so much smarter than me. Okay? So this is not an arrogant rant where the talk show host acts like he's better at the job than somebody else. But to me, that kind of comment shows he's lost. Just too close to the situation to realize what's happening. And you got to back away sometimes. The results are the results. How many games can they throw the ball to the wrong base till you stop saying, well, it's hard to say that it didn't happen yet this year because, it's only mid-July. If you squint, it's, we're there. Like, even when you say that, you're a smart dude, it makes no sense if you squint to try to make it seem like the far off is a little closer than objects in the mirror, closer than they appear. And then when he said, hey, 5 guys are in the bullpen or 5 guys from the bullpen are now on the shelf. Okay. I'm so tired of the injuries of this team being used as an excuse. The reason why I say that, yeah, it's a reason. And important players went down. Do you realize A.J. Puck only pitched 8 games this year? I get it. But you had Justin Martinez all of April, couple times in May, couple times in June. Those are two pretty big horses to only be available in April. I get it. But when you had them in April, you went 16-14. That's your April record. 16-14. The team was 11-17 in May. And then that's when things really started to kind of fall apart. It wasn't injuries. Your regular guys were making errors. Your regular guys were throwing to the wrong base. Your regular guys are getting thrown out at third with less than 2 outs on non-force plays. People are running on your outfielders all over the place. Josh Naylor could not figure out how to stretch properly and save bad throws. And yet, after an 11-17 May, you now want to say, well, it's the injuries. Injuries don't cause you to play bad baseball. They cause you to sometimes not get the clutch hits you need, stuff like that. Like when you get out talented because of injuries, man, I'm going to be the first one to run and defend Mike Hazen. But I'm tired of all of these guys using so many excuses this year instead of looking at themselves and saying, we failed because there is not a sense of urgency in this organization. You made the 2023 World Series. Yeah, it was awesome. It was great. I loved every second of it. But you got swept by the Astros in a final weekend homestand and slipped into the playoffs. And instead of saying, we are going to bring a different kind of intensity into 2024 because we loved being in the World Series, you blow a 7-0 lead to the Brewers, have a whole litany of games that you blew in June, and you ended up in a tie and lost a 3-way tiebreaker. So you would think after the last 2 years, there would be nothing but urgency going into 2025. And you lay that big of an egg in April and May and played uninspired baseball. But it's injuries? No, it's not. You either have a managerial problem that cannot create the sense of urgency in the clubhouse, or you have a leadership problem in that clubhouse. It's always one or the other. I think you and I might disagree on which one it is. You probably think it's the manager, and that would be an intelligent opinion. I'm not telling you you're wrong, but I look more at the players not taking control of the situation, because this is about professional accountability. When we're talking about college kids, yeah, I'm staring down the coach. When we're looking at professionals, the players in the clubhouse are the ones that set the intensity. This is a team whose best player doesn't bring the intensity that is needed. It is time to trade Ketel Marte. I wish they would listen. Which brings up my question. I asked the question on the press conference. You know what? I won't tell you what I asked. I'll just let you hear it, just so you know. If you ever want to get a beer with me, I'll tell you the story of me being asked not to ask about Mike Hazen's family. Kind of a very, very gut-wrenching and sad conversation I had one time with the current leader of the Baseball Hall of Fame. But I'll tell you that story if you ever ask. Yet, I started off the conversation like I usually do with just about anybody. I care about people's family. But then I wanted to make it real.
Hey, Mike, hope the boys are good. Is this a situation, you mentioned the contract situations, is that really the only people we're talking about? For an example, is Marte off the table, or are you listening about anybody or just contract guys?
So the contract guys are definitely taking up the majority, if not all, of our attention. I'm not going to shock you with this comment, but of the guys that Ketel, Corbin, Moreno, Perdomo, Fott, Nelson, like the younger group that's under long-term control, they're all calling me about them too. So it's just one of those things where, you have to, in almost every conversation, it's what would you guys talk about these guys at all? And, if I say, depends on what you're talking about. it would be a haul that usually shuts the conversations down pretty quickly. So the majority of the conversations that are real conversations in my mind surround the guys that are coming up. Most times at the deadline, anytime you're talking about controllable guys, you can have some conversations around them sometimes. But invariably, everybody just says, "Well, this is something that doesn't have to happen right now. We can kick it to the off season if it's something we want to talk about." But I'm not as inclined to do those things. I think my focus is more on the guys that are expiring at the end of the year. So that's just sort of the nature of what happens right now.
There's a lot of people that have had a wide varying of opinions on my question and his answer. Got a lot of texts from different people in the media that I really appreciated that said I had the best question of the press conference. I don't say that to feel important. It was just, I admit though, it was kind of funny. When I was on air, I wouldn't have thought about it. I was like, well, that's kind of our job to ask good questions. But I admit it was nice to have people reach out to me that I haven't talked to in a little bit that, after they heard that question, they checked on me, things like that. But my issue with the answer is simply because he makes it sound like the only ones that are going are Suarez and Kelly and Gallen. That clearly Ketel Marte is not on that list, and I think that's a mistake. And I wish that they realized it, but they don't, because the calculators that they use, the analytics that they have say all of these wonderful things about Ketel Marte, and they're all true. The catch is when your best player takes so many days off and again, I will always excuse the home robbery. You're not going to get me to go nuts on that one. But so many other things. He had a rest day on Sunday before the All-Star game because there's going to be so many things he has to do at the All-Star game. Are you kidding? That still amazes me. You're going to play in an exhibition game representing a team that has fallen far below expectations that was at the time in a dogfight for the playoffs. And he takes a day off. I mean, either way, if the manager told him to take a day off, how he doesn't lose his mind saying, blank, no, I'm not taking off. I'm a leader on this team. I'm playing. Or he asked off. And if he asked off, how in the world is there nobody on that? Again, this is my 1980s opinion. I admit it. How is there not somebody on the team that wants to start a fight with him? Dude, I get playoff bonuses. I'm a low-paid guy. I need you out there. I'm a pitcher. My ERA and my whip and everything else, my win total, all of these things are affected by whether or not you get base hits. Let's go. And yet, no, he needs a day off. Now, the other part that has people being rubbed the wrong way is because he's mentioning all these other guys and admitting he's getting calls on those guys. That is the type of general manager I want, I got to tell you. I don't believe in anybody being untouchable. If I'm Brian Cashman, Aaron Judge is not untouchable. I'll trade Aaron Judge. Now, what am I trading him for? Well, I want 3 major league players that are better than three of the starting people that I have in my starting lineup. And I want your top 5 prospects, if all of them are better than the people that are in my minor league system. And I want your next 3 compensatory picks. You might not know this, but in the Major League Baseball draft, your regular draft picks are not tradable, but your compensatory picks are. So that's what I want. They're called competitive balance picks, by the way. That's what I want. I want 3 of your competitive balance picks. I want 5 of your prospects, if they're better than mine. Just because they're your top 5 doesn't mean they're my top 5. And I want your top 3 major leaguers, if they're better than mine. That's, there's my price for Aaron Judge. So what did I just ask for? I think 11 guys. See what I mean? Now, if the guy actually calls my bluff and says, okay, well, then I'll say, well, not yet. Let me do my research and let me actually look at your group and stuff like that. But that's what I mean. There's a price for everybody. And so I like what he said. Yeah, it's going to be a haul. And he starts throwing around numbers. Okay, you want Corbin Carroll. This is how high it's going to go. Okay, never mind. I'm okay with that. Why not? But why is the price so high that it shuts down the conversation on Ketel Marte? Mike Hazen, that's a mistake. You are too close to the situation. You like him too much as a human being, or you are too in love with the analytics and you are forgetting what it means to be in a clubhouse. Have you not seen the last few years? Where is the fight? Where is the guy that's able to pick up the team in a low regular season, emotionally, in the clubhouse, getting on people, holding them accountable, demanding excellence from everybody else? When your best player doesn't do that, there is always, always, always a hole. I like this question about how much did the Astros series affect you? Because keep in mind, he's doing this Zoom call before the Pirates series. So he was asked, how much did the Josh Naylor trade, how much was that affected by the fact of what happened against the Astros? And he brought a great deal of honesty to this.
I mean, I suppose based on how I behaved yesterday, if you ask me conceptually, like how I still see this baseball team, I still see this baseball team as one that has the capability of doing what we did against the St. Louis Cardinals, maybe not scoring 12 runs a night, but being able to go out there and take it to just about anybody in this league. The unfortunate part of it, we're just not doing that. I felt like we lost a couple of very winnable ball games, and unfortunately, the pattern for this team has been on a number of occasions we've ripped off 3 or 4 in a row, and then we just turn around and it disappears on us. It's not one loss and then back to winning 3 or 4 in a row. It's multiple losses. It's sweep. It's the Miami series. It's the Houston series. There's just been a lot of tricky moments during the season where we just haven't been able to keep it together. And, it's a long season. Those things happen. It's just been our MO from start to finish. And, we've talked about this. Look, some of that is the depths of injuries that we've taken. Definitely puts the team in a tougher situation to grind through some moments in time. But, watching, just offensively and there's no knock on the offense. The offense has carried us the entire season, so it's hard for me to do that. But our approach this week wasn't very good. I mean, we've had multiple starters just cruising through us, and I didn't see us slowing that down at all to take these games. And, it's just at some point I have to take a step back from what I want to do and focus on what the greater good for the organization is. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be everything. It just means, I have to take something off the table at this point, and we'll see what happens for the rest of the week. We still have 5 more days to go before the deadline.
Well, that was on Friday, and that was before losing a series to Pittsburgh. And now you're going up against the best team in Major League Baseball, in the Detroit Tigers. Today, tomorrow, and Wednesday, off on Thursday, which is the actual trade deadline. Trade deadline's at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Thursday. So it's pretty apparent all the guys will be gone. And one of the things that is kind of entertaining here, keep this in mind, the Detroit Tigers have a wonderful defensive third baseman who is an absolute disaster this year offensively. So therefore, what are they going to do? I mean, is there any chance that they're going to make a move and get a Eugenio Suarez? Zach McKinstry's a kid from just south of Detroit in Toledo, Ohio, who's playing third base for the Tigers. So this is probably his dream gig. Batting average isn't an embarrassment to the family, but he's only got 8 home runs. And you can't have a corner infield position that's projecting to hit about 13 home runs for the year. You got to have more than that. And then here's Suarez. I don't think it's crazy for Suarez to play tonight and bat in the top half of the inning and play tomorrow and bat in the bottom half of the inning. It's not that crazy to trade him to the other clubhouse. I didn't love that answer. I hate the answer of just still holding out hope instead of just accepting the reality. Last one from Hazen. I thought this was a little interesting. He was asked about why now, meaning the Thursday trade of Josh Naylor. Why not wait until the deadline? Why get rid of him a week early? And there's a lot of nuance in this answer. It's a little long, but see if you pick up what he's really saying.
I felt like with the position players, the number of position players we have that are being asked about, and not planning on trading everybody, but just the number of position players we were being asked about, the number of pitchers we have that were being asked about, both our starters and our relievers. I just felt like we were looking at the market and needing to be able to do a good job with everything we're doing, and not when you're a buyer and you get down to the deadline, you're at the mercy of the seller. I think when you're the selling team in this situation, you can dictate the pace at which you want to work. And we just called everybody in yesterday and basically told them we got a deal that we were willing to do, and we started pushing every other deal. And we got a lot of offers yesterday. We felt like we were in a position where teams were matching or below obviously the deal that we took, but moved way up into the area that we felt comfortable where deals could get done, and we felt like it was the right thing to do. I think with the first base market, it can be tricky. You're at the mercy of teams needing a bat either at first base or DH, and while most teams have that available, there's also where can they go to find players to play those spots? Like if you remember last year, we got Josh Bell at the deadline for cash. And I just think, obviously, Josh Naylor is an exceptional player, and we knew we were going to do well for him. But I also think we have to assess what that market is going to look like. I think in the pitching market, it's way different. The pitching market, everybody has 13 spots on their team, and most teams probably have at least 3 upgradable spots in those areas, and almost everybody has 1 in the rotation and some in the bullpen. And so I just think the pitching market behaves a lot different than the position player market. So wanted to be able to focus our attention and energy appropriately as we move through the week, and trying to make 2 or 3 trades a lot of times with the same teams, with the same players. I didn't feel like we were going to be able to do as good of a job. So we decided to push the market yesterday to see what was going to happen.
I really love that answer, but it's so nuanced and detailed. I hope you're okay if we go over it. When they made the Josh Naylor trade, I looked at it, and it's like I said to you, if the young kid that's going to Hillsborough is in a situation where you see something from him that maybe the Mariners don't see, then that could be just a boon. So Ashton Izzy is that young man's name. And if you saw him pitch and you said, hey, we can get his numbers a lot better if we change this. He's a hidden gem. Let's go get him. Hey, more power to you. But when I originally saw that trade, I kind of felt like that wasn't enough. Should have got a little more. But one thing about Mike Hazen to all the other general managers is he's a very honest man. So when he said we got to a deal we were happy with, we called and brought everybody to the table. What he's saying is, I called around then to the people that we had talked to in the past about Josh Naylor and said, hey, we got a deal. We're about ready to move Josh Naylor. What do you want to do? And he said teams came to the table and teams started matching. And he said, clearly they didn't match what we had, but we were able to push that deal. So to me, what that means is they had a deal with the Mariners for maybe one pitcher or the other, or maybe it was one of the two pitchers, but another guy not as highly rated by either team, Diamondbacks or Mariners. And they were able to move up to that next tier of talent level, saying, hey, if you don't add so-and-so, I am going to trade Josh Naylor to the Cubs. I'm just making up a team. So, I do have another offer on the table, but I came to the agreement with you first. I want to let you match. Okay, fine. We'll throw in the Izzy kid. And okay, fine. That's who we wanted. Great. We're good. And then you do the trade. He also said we have to be aware of the first base market. And we have to assess where we are with that market. That is just saying point blank, first base and DH are easy. Out of all the problems to fill, that one's easy. So if we get the deal that we want, we shouldn't wait till the deadline. We've got to strike now because the first base DH market might not really heat up. So let's jump on it. And then I like his last little tidbit there where he says, and we're dealing with a lot of the same teams, meaning a lot of teams are looking for corner infielders. And so you're talking 1 minute about trading Suarez with a team, 1 minute about trading Naylor with a team. And then it can, I don't want to say it can become confusing, but you start saying, okay, wait, I want this guy. No, you can't have that guy for Naylor. Well, what about Suarez? Well, yeah, you can have that guy for Suarez. Well, then I want that other guy too. Well, no, unless you give us Suarez and Naylor. Well, I'm not giving you Suarez and Naylor. It really gets weird. And he says, I want to be able to focus attention appropriately. So that is simply saying we don't want the distraction. We have the deal we want. Let's move on from Naylor now because we think we got a fair deal. And I want us focused on crushing the Suarez deal. There's nothing bigger than that. The other two, I'm not going to go crazy about because I don't know what you're going to get from Zach Allen. It's kind of the same point I just made about the Izzy kid. If there's a team that thinks they can fix Zach Allen, man, go get him. But nobody wants to admit it. He's one of the worst pitchers in the National League. Yeah. That's the reality of where we are right now. So what is he worth in a trade? Not as much as he should be. But the Diamondbacks are doing a great job acting like he's worth a lot in a trade. And I think a team trading for him believes once we get him out of that environment, he will succeed. And I bet that's the case. I bet that's true. So I like that last one. There's a lot of things Mike Hazen said I wasn't jiving with, but I like that last one. Really quick, one thing about the game yesterday. Zach Allen, again, terrible. Diamondbacks lose 6-0. 4 of the earned runs are his. This is what I mean when you hear me say throw it to the wrong base. Okay? Here's what I mean. Torey Lovello was asked about Zach Allen's outing, and he was kind of like, well, it didn't go as good. And then listen to what he says about one of the Pirates' runs.
You talk about opportunities. It looked like they capitalized on a couple of theirs. It was, I think, a leadoff walk followed by the stolen base long single in left center field. I thought we played a little confused on that play. And then the hit batter followed by, I think, what was a double. I can't remember exactly what it was. So however they got on early in the second and third inning, they capitalized. And for me, that was a difference in a really good quality outing versus an outing where he gives up 4 runs. But I thought he was real efficient. He fought to stay in the game. I really liked that, but I felt like at 85 pitches in the seat, it was the right thing to do.
The play he's talking about is the perfect example when you hear me talking about baseball IQ, which I think can actually measure your competitiveness too. How much are you paying attention because you want to win that bad? O'Neal Cruz got a leadoff walk in the second inning. Would you like to take a wild guess on who leads Major League Baseball in stolen bases right now? Yes, it's O'Neal Cruz. So when you are playing for the Arizona Diamondbacks and a leadoff walk happens to the Major League Baseball stolen base leader. And when I say stolen base leader, like stolen bases have been down for years and years and years until they expanded the bases. O'Neal Cruz has 34 stolen bases. We're not talking about he's just leading baseball. He's well on pace to have 50 to 55 stolen bases this year. So he's on first. Aren't you thinking he might steal? Well, he steals second. But as he's running, there's a base hit. Now, the way baseball IQ works, the way thinking of the game works, the way, if you don't mind me teaching you a little bit something, you've heard the term relay, I'm assuming. You know, it's a relay throw. You throw it here and the infielder relays it here. And well, just like in football where you have plays, in a sense, in baseball, you have plays. And it's determined by the score. It's determined by the number of outs. It's determined by the position of the runners. Okay? Very simply, if there's a runner on first and there's a base hit, the runner really wants to go from second to third. And if that's the case, then the ball, depending on where it's hit, if it's hit to the left side of second base, then the shortstop follows the ball. He runs out with the ball. And the second baseman covers second. And the third baseman covers third. If the ball is hit to the right side of the infield, through the infield to the right fielder or to the center fielder on the right side of second base, the shortstop covers second. The second baseman goes out as the cutoff man. And then you're trying to relay it and possibly throw him out at third when he tries to go to third, or catch him in between and throw it behind him and throw it to this, now the shortstop covering second, because I said the ball went to the right side. All of that changes if we're dealing with a runner on second base. If a guy is on second, well, now he's a threat to score. So then everything is different. If the ball is hit down the left field line, the third baseman is the cutoff man. The shortstop covers third. This ball was not hit down the third baseline. This base hit was mostly hit up the middle, a little bit to the right of second base to center field. So now with a runner on second, your cutoff is the first baseman abandons first base totally. You know the guy's going to get a base hit and be safe on first, so there's no reason to have anybody over there. The first baseman becomes your infield cutoff man. And again, what side of the base is it on? Second base side or shortstop side of the bag. And then that player runs out. And then some teams decide to have what they call a spy or your eyes. And they'll send both middle infielders out because the first baseman trails the play and in a sense becomes the second baseman. He'll cover second just in case the batter is trying to get a double. So all of that's going on at the same time. But with a runner on second, the priority is the plate and to ensure the double play. So we've got 2 goals on the play. If the runner's on first, let's position ourselves to keep him from getting to third. If the runner is on second, well, now we want to make sure we keep the batter on first base while we keep the runner on third base. That makes sense? Batter on first, runner on third. Well, since O'Neal Cruz starts this at-bat, standing on first base, and Tommy Pham is batting, when he steals, this is the number 1 stolen base leader in baseball. You have to have the baseball IQ to know he's going to go. So if he goes, the first baseman is yelling, yeah, 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 yeah. I used to yell, yeah, 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 yeah. I don't know why. I was told to yell, he's going, he's going, he's going. And I just thought that was geeky. I just thought that was silly. And I like, yeah, 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 yeah. And I would yell like that. And that meant he's going. So the first baseman's yelling that he's going. So everybody's got to be thinking, this is the number 1. We know who it is. That's O'Neal Cruz. And then when you see the ball as a base hit through the outfield, you no longer think that O'Neal Cruz is on first. You have to think he's on second. 2 of the 4 infielders on the play went to cut the ball as if O'Neal Cruz was on first to keep him off of third base and to keep the batter off of second. No. O'Neal Cruz is stealing second. By the time the ball got through the infield, he's already hit second. Now the ball's going up the gap, and you guys are running the wrong play. And you need the baseball IQ. As soon as that ball got hit, somebody's yelling, 4, 4, 4, cut 4, and you're yelling, hey, get here, get here. And you've got to be thinking, that's the play. And they didn't adjust. It was like, wait, you're not allowed to score from first. That's hard. We don't know what to do. We didn't score from first, in a sense. On your scorebook, he did, because it's not a stolen base. But in reality, he was on second. And it was horribly communicated, not communicated at all, or just plain and simple not known what to do. And I swear I hope it's not the latter. And you might be thinking, Doug, there's no way all of that goes on in a player's head. And the truth is, maybe it doesn't anymore because of the pitch clock, because they're not thinking. But that's what you're supposed to be doing between pitches. You've got 18 seconds with a runner on first base to go through your head. What am I going to do? Runner on first. If the ball's hit to me, I'm going to try to turn 2. But it's O'Neal Cruz. He's probably going to steal. So if he's stealing, I'm only turning 2 if I'm the shortstop and I'm right next to the back. Everybody else, you're going 1. And if you go 1, make sure we get somebody over to third. If Eugenio Suarez has to charge it and throw him out at first, the catcher's already got to be thinking, that's O'Neal Cruz at first. If we lose our if we lose our third baseman, I'm the one that's got to go over there to third to cover. I got to make sure I'm there. And Ketel Marte's got to be thinking, on a ball hit to Suarez, I'm covering second, and Perdomo's got to be thinking, I'm covering third. We got to make sure third's covered. And on a ball out to the outfield, we're going to try to keep him off third unless he's going. And if he's stealing, we're going to try to keep him from scoring. That's the thinking. And you're thinking that, and then you go to your correct position. That's what they're supposed to be doing all during spring training, is going over those scenarios. And they were unprepared. They weren't thinking about it. They weren't focused on the game. And to me, that's simply your desire to win. Is your desire to beat the Pittsburgh Pirates worth it to you to be that focused on all of those potential possibilities so you know where to go without thinking about it? Once the base hit happens, it's too late. You can't be wrong. You can't be thinking, wait a minute, he just whipped by me at second base. Maybe I shouldn't be playing for a play at third. It should have been as soon as you heard Tristan English, the new first baseman, yelling that he's stealing, that you've already switched your brain. I probably went too long on that. I mean, those deep dives that I do, I know I can get boring sometimes, but I love the game. I want you to love the game. I want you to appreciate how much goes into it. And I hate to say it, I want you just as angry as I am about it. Maybe because I'm crazy and I want a friend. But that's what we're dealing with. And it can't happen. And it's been happening all year. So when you hear people say throwing it to the wrong base, that's what they mean. Somehow the cutoff was in the wrong place. Communication wasn't right. And that's just bad baseball. All right, coming up next, let's do some odds and ends. Not the heavily produced odds and ends, because there's a lot of little things that you might be interested in. And my number one thing is meeting Ichiro. And no, I've never met him, but I felt like I did yesterday. That's next. This is Doug Franz Unplugged, presented by Whirlwind Golf Club at Wild Horse Fast.
Here is Sue Rigler on starting 100 Mile Brewing Company.
What started 100 Mile Brewing Company is I actually have a degree in microbiology from ASU. Go Devils. And went back to school. I found out that UC San Diego had a brewing program, so I enrolled in that. And with the intention of opening a brewery, I came back to Tempe because it's Sun Devil country. I wanted to open a brewery in Tempe, which fresh, it never gets old is our tagline. And I'm pretty much a stickler about fresh beer. It's got to be fresh. Otherwise, it's not going to be served here.
Let's do some odds and ends. Some odds and ends. Some odds and ends. Still got a lot left because of how much I loved Ichiro and his Hall of Fame speech yesterday. And then a couple little tidbits that I found interesting. Actually, let's go in reverse order. I'll do Ichiro last, and I'll do all the little ones that I have on my mind first. And we're going to start things off with the Arizona Rattlers from last night. I want you to know full well, I am not making any accusations whatsoever. Okay? No accusations. I don't know anything about who's a better matchup. But the Arizona Rattlers had a game last night. If they won the game, they would take on Las Vegas at home in the first round of the playoffs. If they lost the game, they would take on San Diego at home in the first round of the playoffs. So they're playing in San Diego, and again, beat San Diego, play Vegas, lose to San Diego, play San Diego. Well, they lost. They were down 30-6 at halftime. The game did not matter to them whatsoever. If they won the game, they were the 2 seed. They couldn't catch Bay Area. And if they lost the game, they're the 2 seed because nobody could beat them in a tiebreaker other than Bay Area. So that's what's at stake. I realize I'm him-hauling around a lot before I say what I'm going to say, but I just wanted to make sure you understood. I'm not accusing anybody of anything. But I think I know Kevin Guy well enough to know that if he thought he had a better chance of beating San Diego in the playoffs than he does Vegas, he would 100% manipulate the game to get the favorable matchup. Now, maybe it's not what he wanted. Maybe he thinks, hey, we can beat Las Vegas easier, and he wanted the team to do a lot better, and the team had checked out. I don't know. But to start a game, a team of that level, that caliber, who's always competing for an IFL championship, and who are the defending champions, to be down 30-6 at halftime, that just seems like, to me, they wanted to play San Diego. So they play San Diego coming up a week from tonight in the championship game. Arthur Blank, owner of the Falcons, has admitted in a podcast interview that he believes the time is coming where every team will play an international game every year, that there will be 16 international games on the schedule. Right now, in the current CBA, there's a limit of 10. And the players, when they go on an international trip, they get paid extra. And then there's something about, I think you have to be given a bye week if you travel over the ocean unless you're East Coast time going to England. I think it's something like that. I don't remember what it is specifically. But usually you get your bye week right after. But you do get a couple extra bucks for going over. Well, I totally believe that that's going to happen. And I believe that the 18-game schedule is going to happen. So you're going to have 18 games. One of them is going to be an international game every year. Maybe even 2 international games at some point. Now, international includes Toronto and Mexico City, so you're not always gallivanting all across the globe. But I totally agree with Arthur Blank that that's coming. And of course, it's not really something to agree with. If he's saying it's coming, that means he already knows it. LPGA, it's pretty cool. AIG Women's Open is coming up this weekend. We'll keep an eye on it. But what was incredible is there's a girl named, let me make sure I say her name right. Her full name is Charlotte Wood. But with the Charlotte, they just call her Lottie. And Lottie Wood has been one of the great amateur golfers for a couple years. Well, she made her pro debut this weekend. And she won the Scottish Open in her pro debut. Shot a 4 under 68 in her final round. That's just amazing to me. Your first ever professional event, and you win it. See how she does at this week's event, the major at Royal Porthcawl. Hopefully I said that right because I've never heard of that one. And the women get underway for us Wednesday night in this major. Baseball-wise, one small interesting thing baseball-wise, and then one thing I think is really interesting is the Dodgers are officially going to go to a 6-man rotation with Ichiro now, not Ichiro, that's who I'm about to talk about, with Shohei Ohtani getting ready to go back full-time into the rotation. He's been, pitching on irregular rest, but also going like 1 inning or 2 innings, stuff like that. He's now officially going to be ready to go, and they're going to go with a 6-man rotation. So kind of to spread him out a little bit to reduce innings and have a little bit extra rest. And then I really want to spend a lot of time on the Ichiro press or speech for him being in the Hall of Fame. I just think it's beautiful. I thought he was amazing in the things he said and the humor. I was a little shocked by him blasting the writer. If you haven't heard the story, he was 1 vote shy of being a unanimous selection into the Hall of Fame. And listen, I'm sorry to get personal, but whoever it was, you're an idiot. I mean, that's the only way there is to it. You're an idiot. The guy has 3,000 base hits in America. And he didn't get here until he was 27 years old. He had 1,000 hits in Japan. Pete Rose had 4,256 hits total at the major league level. Well, Ichiro has more hits than Rose if you combine Japanese and Major League Baseball. I'm not saying you can, I'm not saying you should, but I am saying if it wasn't for the Japanese baseball rules and when he's allowed to become a major leaguer, then quite possibly Ichiro would have had 4,000 base hits here. On top of that, he set the single season record for most hits in a season, passing George Sisler. Now, if you don't know who George Sisler is, it's really simple. There's a photograph of the first 8 people to get into the Baseball Hall of Fame. George Sisler's in that picture. Okay. So that's how long ago he played. And yet that record stood that long until Ichiro broke it. 10 Gold Gloves. So he's not only a great hitter, but he's a great defender. 10 Gold Glove, 10 All-Star games. And some Yahoo says, well, you're not a Hall of Famer. It's asinine. So he's talking about his numbers and his stats. And then he says,
if you consistently do the little things, there's no limit what you can achieve. Look at me. I'm 5'11" and 170 pounds. When I came to America, many people said I was too skinny to compete with bigger major leaguers. The first time I ran out on the field, I was in awe of the competition. But I knew if I stuck to my beliefs about preparation, I could overcome the doubts, even my own. 62 hits in one season are achievements recognized by the writers. Well, all but one of you. And by the way, the offer for that writer to have dinner at my home has now expired.
Wow. If you remember, he was so just congenial when when it was found out that one writer didn't vote him in, and he said, I'd love to have that writer over to my house for dinner and let's talk. And the writer didn't take him up on it. So now he says that offer has expired. I didn't cut one of them. It was a little long, but gosh, it was interesting. He was known as an appearance perfectionist, where everything had to be right to the point that it was kind of anal. And he got teased a lot about it. And I took it the wrong way. I don't think he cares about my opinion, but I took it like he was being very vain and wanted to make sure everything looked so good. Like just so everything fit so perfect, everything. It was just weird. He explained that he couldn't accept it if he was ever thrown out because his spikes weren't perfectly clean of the mud, or if he didn't get to a ball because there was a leather strap that hadn't been tied tight enough. So he spent hours working on his equipment to make sure the equipment wouldn't let him down. And therefore, if he didn't succeed, he knew it was his fault. I thought that was crazy beautiful. This last one is just gold, and I couldn't help but I was so excited to play it for you based on everything I said about the Diamondbacks today. It's the injury. It's hard right now. It's, we're a good team, but it's this, it's that, and the other thing. What Ichiro says here, I think, is just magic. Because of the accent, I just want to let you know in the middle of it, he says it's not because the pitcher. And at the end, he says, cheat the fans. Cheat the fans. It's kind of hard to make that out. But he's talking about the responsibilities that the game teaches people that take it seriously.
I have been asked, what's the best thing you can do for your team? My answer is taking responsibility for yourself. Being responsible for yourself means answering to yourself. When you go home at night and wonder why you didn't get a hit or you didn't make a catch, the honest answer is not because a great pitcher beat you or a tough sun was in your eyes. It's because there was something you could have done better. By taking responsibility for yourself, you support your teammates and you don't cheat the fans.
When you don't get a hit, it's not because a great pitcher beat you. It's so true. Because on the one hand, yes, of course it's that way. When you strike out, that guy beat you. But if you're really looking at yourself, then it becomes, what did I do wrong? Why didn't I see that right pitch? Where was it? It's not just because I swung and missed at strike 3. How did we get to strike 3? What sign did I not pick up? Why was I not thinking along with that pitcher? What did I do wrong? What do I need to work on? Did I swing and miss at an outside curve? All right, am I putting in the effort to hit that pitch? Why, if it's not my pitch, why am I swinging at it? You're really studying yourself. That's not disrespectful to the other guy, but so often all we hear is, well, hey, I respect their defense, or hey, I respect that pitcher. They've got good players over there. No, your job was to get the hit. And you did or you did not do your job. Now, who are we to say you're a failure? I'm about a 280. I think I hit about 280 my senior year in high school. Okay, who am I to rip the guy for not getting a hit? But if you're not staring down yourself, then that's why you're not as good as Ichiro. I thought that was awesome for all of us. That level of responsibility. And that responsibility, taking responsibility for yourself, supports your teammates and doesn't cheat the fans. Man, he was really good. I really, really enjoyed listening to Ichiro. It's time for Let's go. There is no dancing today. At all, not even thinking about it. It's 5:14 in the morning. I always want to get the podcast up by 5. It'll be up by 5:30, so I didn't totally fail today. Well, what was that? How terrible was that? I'm going to be 30 minutes late. I just talked about Ichiro, and look how easy I fell into the hole. Well, it's not entirely my fault. I had a lot of spaghetti, and I got off to a slow start. Oh boy, did I just prove my level of humanity right there. A rough one for me. I'm not happy about this. Pirates drive me nuts. So my game on Friday, I took the Pirates on the money line, and the Diamondbacks get that 11th inning sac fly. Man, Tommy Pham had a triple in the game. He's standing on third. He's left there. O'Neal Cruz was left on third. It was rough for me in my bet, even though I was rooting for the Diamondbacks. I took Seattle on the money line against the Angels. They blew it. Angels won in the 10th. So that my two misses are both extra inning games. The other two games we won in a landslide. I took the Liberty minus the 6.5 against the Merc. They won by 13. And I took San Diego in the IFL plus the 1.5. So we even had points. And they blew out the Rattlers 46-26. So we went 2-2, but I lost money because of the negative juice on some of them. So that stunk. I mean, that really stinks. So with those two losses, I am now in a slump of 29-35 that we got to get out of. Let's go. Hopefully these are 3 games that'll help get us there. Pittsburgh, after taking on the Diamondbacks, had to fly all the way out to San Francisco. The Giants were already home. I think that's a long, tough flight, and the Pirates are bad, so we'll take the Giants on the money line. Washington didn't have that long of a flight, but they still had to fly into Houston while the Astros were sitting at home. So I like the Astros there. But the juice is out of whack. It's like minus 230 if you take the Astros on the money line. So we'll have to lay the run line and go minus 1.5. And then with Eduardo Rodriguez on the mound and this defense and the team mentally checked out, and Detroit's actually not throwing one of their better pitchers, I like the over in this one. Over 8.5 combined. I'm taking over the total, and I don't think it's going to be close. Like, I think we'll have it by the 5th inning or 6th inning. I think we'll be over the 8.5. So I really look forward to an easy game there. So Giants on the money line, Astros covering the run line, and Diamondbacks and Tigers going over the 8.5. Sound credits today. I went to YouTube and got the Mercury coach, Nate Tibbetts, the Cardinals, Monty Austinfort, and Jonathan Gannon. The Mercury page on YouTube. AZ Cardinals is the site on YouTube for the Cardinals. And I went to MLB's YouTube page for the Ichiro. And then for the Zoom call, that was just my Zoom. I recorded it. I'm important. I give myself a sound credit for Mike Hazen. And I got the Torey Lovello off of the Diamondbacks feed, even though it was a real crappy feed, off of DBTV. If you haven't done it, please find a way in the near future to get to one of our sponsors. Really getting some great feedback lately from you on 100 Mile Brewing, on Parker & Sons, and on Santan Ford. That's awesome. Glad that they made you very, very happy. Santan Ford, 202 in Val Vista. I am Santan Ford. And, of course, the number for Parker & Sons, if you don't know it, is 602-2-REPAIR. That's 602, the number 2, then REPAIR for Parker & Sons. However, I do want to give a shout-out. I met Rich and Brad the other day at Bell's Nashville Kitchen, and I don't know if you know this. It was kind of empty, and it's mostly because in the summer, I think it's not touristy for Old Town Scottsdale, so you don't have the tourists, but none of us that are townies think about going to Old Town thinking it's too crowded or it's crazy or it's whatever, and it's not in the summer. You can easily get a parking space, and it's, man, such good food, great place for lunch or happy hour or dinner. So if you haven't been to Bell's in a while, or if you've never been to Bell's, please do me a favor and make it a point to go there in the next month, because I'm sure they could use the business at this time of year, but most importantly, you're not going to have a struggle getting a parking spot and getting in there. Burrito Express locations all across the east side and coming to a Circle K near you. And Trophy Bar in Scottsdale has the best sports bar rigatoni of any place in the world. I don't think anybody's ever tried to compete with sports bar rigatoni, but man, it's just excellent. And of course, the big dog. Don't forget about the Whirlwind Fantasy Football Special. If you're interested, email me 6022. Oh my gosh, did I really say that? If you're interested, email me Doug at DougFranzUnplugged.com. That was the biggest sign. I got really tired right there. Here's what you get. You get a tea time. You get a room to do your fantasy draft in. And you get wings, and you get nachos. And when we're talking on the nachos, beef, chicken, and pork, all on the nachos. $1 off your beer, free non-alcoholic drinks. This is phenomenal, and I'm excited to do it with the Unplugged Army. So right now we're at 3. If we get to 10, I'll do it. I think we can handle 10 to 14, and that's just an unplugged group. But if you haven't thought about it for your fantasy football group, well then, how are you going to beat that? There's no way. If you're playing fantasy football, there's no way you've got a better deal. Now, if you've already got your trip planned, okay, I get it. But if you don't have your trip planned or a place to go, or you're just planning on going to a buddy's, man, jump on this idea. Jump on it, absolutely. And maybe you and I can get together, and I'll be a part of it too and have some fun. Love to see you and be a part of everything that's going on with Whirlwind. That deal is amazing. Just email me again, Doug at DougFranzUnplugged.com. $75 a person Monday through Thursday, $100 a person on Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. Complete coverage of the big practice today. Huge practice for the Cardinals, and which is the first with the pads on, and we'll be able to judge how physical this camp is going to be. And then it's also Town Hall Tuesday tomorrow. And then on Wednesday's show, it'll be after the first Kenny Dillingham press conference. We got a busy week. Miss Yao.
Doug, thank you so much. My best to your listeners, and keep up the work on Doug Franz Unplugged.